do it. Are you going to record the story?
I am, so now you have to start at the beginning.
And then you can put it in chat, and chat can just listen to it over.
That's good.
So my friend was going to jump, and the jump master said, "Why don't you do a demo jump for him while they're waiting?" And so I was like, I probably should, for his sake.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And so I had a friend's main chute, but I rented an emergency chute. I think it was 50 cents. This is in the old days. These were old military surplus, World War II military surplus chutes. They weren't the fancy flying wing type paraglider, chutes that they use now that you come gliding in. These were round. They had what they call modifications in the back, little openings so that air could flow out the back, and that would move you forward about 5 miles an hour, and you could pull the toggles, would wrinkle one side of the chute or the other, and that would create a little drag, and so you could steer yourself. So you're moving about 5 miles an hour forward, and you can create drag on the right side or the left side, which would turn you to the left or to the right, and you could steer yourself down to your landing side. And they didn't, this is before tandem jumps and all that stuff. So, so I'm jumping at 3,000 feet, and the ground elevation, the field elevation was like 19 feet. Sacramento Executive Airport's 19 feet. This was Yolo County International just outside. And it was a huge, tremendous landing strip that was built by the Air Force or the Navy or somebody. They were going to build a base out there. And so it was like a 10,000-foot runway you could land a 747 on. But after they built the runway, they lost their funding or whatever, and they just didn't build anything else. So there was nothing out there except for this
big long runway
sized landing strip out in the middle of a farmer's field, and there was like a little dirt road you could drive out to there, and the jump club out there had a phone booth installed out there so that they could make phone calls or whatever, but there were no restrooms.
Call the ambulances.
There was nothing else out there except for this phone booth with a red light on the top. There was no lights, no runway lights. We used to go out and land on it at night time. I used to go out there and do touch and goes, because it's a great place to practice landings. But one time I was out there doing practice landings, and as I'm making my final approach, I look over and there's a parachute hanging about 10 feet off my wingtip. And scared me to death. But anyway, I landed and found out, there was this club down there.
Your battery's going to die before you're done.
Sorry.
Keep
talking. There's this club down there that makes, the skydiving club, and there was a guy down there, a kid that had his own parachute. His parents wouldn't let him jump because he was too young, but he was like, "I'll let you use my parachute for free if you will take me flying." And so we had a little exchange there and everything, so I got to use his parachute for free. And they made me a deal on the training. It was like $20 for my first jump. Went out there, spent about an hour going through a little jumping off a platform, learned how to land and everything. And so anyway, I'm going to do this jump from 3,000 feet, and so I rent this emergency chute. As I'm getting in the plane, there's this cord that goes from your main chute to the ripcord on your emergency chute. So if you cut away your main chute, it'll automatically pull the ripcord on your emergency chute. And the emergency chute is spring-loaded. It has a spring behind a little pilot chute that's only about this big, and then it has a 10-foot cord, and it jerks the rest of your chute out really fast. And this pilot chute is spring-loaded, so that if you pull your emergency chute, it actually shoots that little pilot chute out there and opens your emergency chute really fast. Because you don't want to. You're on when you're cutting away your main chute, you're aerodynamically made so that you're falling on your back, and the emergency chute rises up like this. It's on these straps and goes up. But since this emergency chute is spring-loaded, they make you put your hand on the front of it all the time and hold it, because if something catches on your ripcord in the plane, and you're all cramped inside and people, whatever, you get that hooked on something, and if you accidentally pulled your emergency chute in the plane, that little chute would go right out the door, and it would just rip you through the side of the plane.
That would be bad.
That would be bad. So as a precaution, whenever you're walking around, or especially if you're in the plane, you have one hand on the front of your emergency chute, just in case something opened that you could hold that spring in. Well, the cord, as I'm getting in the plane, the cord is kind of dangling loose, and my jump master says, that's dangerous, because you catch that on something, it's going to pull your ripcord or whatever. And so he kind of takes it, kind of tucks it in here and wraps it around there and kind of gets it so it's not hanging loose, And so that's fine. I get in the plane, and so we go up to 3,000 feet, and the door flips up onto the wing. It's a high-wing plane, Cessna 182. And you slide your foot down the wheel thing, and there's a little plate right on top of the wheel, and the wing strut is coming up. And so you slide your foot down there, you reach out to the wing, and you're standing outside the plane.
This video's hysterical because now all I've got is your tummy.
Okay. So you're standing outside the plane, underneath the wing like this, and the door's right here, and you're standing on the wheel, holding onto the wing strut outside the plane, 3,000 feet up. It's just awesome. And the jump master, they'll throw a little piece of tissue or something out of the plane. They can see where the wind's going and everything. He figured he gets the pilot so that he's in the right spot, so you're going to land in the jump zone. And when he figures it's just right, he kind of hits you on the leg and you jump back. And then, so as soon as you're clear from the plane, you reach down and pull your ripcord, and chute opens up, and because it's too low for free fall. So I jump and I pull my ripcord, and the chute opens, but it opens really hard. I mean, there's a real hard opening shock, which is a bad sign. They tell you, if you have a rough opening, look up and check your canopy because something might be wrong. So I'm trying to look up, but the cords are twisted behind my head, so it was really hard. So I kind of had to turn my head over to the side and look up. I got a helmet on, and I look up, and there's cords over the top of the chute. They call it a spinning Mae West, because I'm spinning on one side is a little bigger. One hump is a little bigger than the other hump. So I'm still falling 50, 60 miles an hour, and it's spinning. And so I remember my training. I remember my 1-hour class. You open the little covers. There's these 2 little metal covers, and these cable rings pop out. And you lock your thumbs in there and give it a good hard jerk, and it cuts away your main chute. And then your emergency chute automatically opens immediately. But I cut away my main chute, and nothing happens, and I gradually roll back over on my stomach, and I'm in free fall. And for a second, I'm thinking, this is awesome. I love free fall.
Sick.
But after a few seconds, I'm thinking, okay, my emergency chute should have opened by now. And I remembered my little class there. You reach down and you pull you kind of hook your thumb in there and pull the ripcord out, and you open your emergency chute. So I reach down, and there's no ripcord. And we even had, electronic stuff in the front. They call it a sentinel that's supposed to blow the front of your chute open if you're unconscious, and it keeps track of your altitude rate or whatever, and that was gone. And it turned out this cord...
You got your 50 cents back.
Yeah. Turned out this cord, he had it all kind of wrapped around with stuff, and when I cut away, it ripped all that off and broke the handle off the emergency chute. And so broke the ripcord right off, and so there's no handle.
Funny now, not so funny at the time.
And so... I'm falling 120 miles an hour, and there is nothing in the world I can do about it. And there's steel pins going through these grommets in there. The thing is made to not come open easily. You pull the ripcord, and it pulls this steel cable with the grommet, the pins out of the grommets and everything. And there's nothing for me to hold on to do that. And so I just figured, that's it. I'm just going to die. And boy, I tell you, when you're falling up high, you don't really get a sense of the ground coming up at you, because in proportion, it's just not that much closer. But that last couple hundred feet comes up really fast, and I feel this, sudden panic of, I'm about to die, and just about 200 feet above the ground, my chute opens. The emergency chute opens. Which is about, if you're going 120 miles an hour, it only takes like 0.4 seconds or something like that. I mean, like less than 1 second to travel 200 feet. So I was less than a second away from hitting the ground. And that pilot chute came by, and it's got a 10-foot cord, but now I'm on my stomach, see? And so it goes up past my neck, and it takes off a strip of skin on my throat about 1.5 inches wide. And it just cut my throat, And I call it riser burns, but my jump master said it was the worst case of riser burns he'd ever seen in his life. Blood all back up in my helmet and everything. And then it gets to the end of that 10-foot cord, and it pulled that emergency chute up and hit me right in the face at 120 miles an hour, and it loosened every tooth in my mouth. When I got home, I could wiggle every single tooth in my mouth. Didn't lose any teeth, but it loosened every one. And but it hit me so hard, it just about knocked me out, and I was just really... And then the opening shock. I'm on my stomach, and it's got me by the shoulders, and it snaps me down like a whip, and just cracks me like a whip. And my legs from about my knees down were all just one solid bruise. It was all purple like it had been beat up, and just the shock of that, all the blood going down to my feet so fast. The opening shock was just tremendous. So I remember seeing that I was coming down on the runway, and we had all the vans kind of parked in a little semicircle on the runway there, and I'm coming right down toward the vans, and I'm thinking, I need to steer over to the grass or whatever, and so I'm reaching up for the toggles, and there are no toggles. And so I remember I could see the people down there in a panic, running around, and my jump master had a megaphone. He was yelling something up to me, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. I was just so dazed. And so when I figured, they say if your toggles get tangled up out of the way on a regular chute, you just pull on the riser. You pull on the riser on the right side of the left. So I tried doing that with this emergency chute, and all it did was kind of get me swinging like this. And my regular chute is a 35-foot chute, which when I come down with that, I land like a ton of bricks. We got these moon boots with big thick soles, and you got to keep your knees. No, you can't. If you lock your knees, it'll break your legs.
Yeah.
So you keep your knees a little bent, and you hit and roll, and even there, it just feels like you jumped off a 15-foot balcony or something. I mean, I really hit like a ton of bricks. And, well, this emergency chute was a 16-foot emergency chute.
That opened at 200 feet.
Yeah, that opened at 200 feet. And I'm swinging, and I'm still coming down probably 35 miles an hour. And I'm coming right down on the asphalt, and I can't steer it and everything. I find out later there are 2 red strings that you can pull, and they'll loosen up, and it'll let the back of the emergency chute open a little bit, and then you can steer it. But I didn't know that. And when I rented that chute, I asked the guy, "Is there anything I need to know about this thing?" He said, "You're not going to use it anyway." That was his answer. And he wanted to charge me for repacking that emergency chute too. Yeah. Yeah.
After it failed.
I said, no way. And he wanted to charge me for the lost ripcord. $13 for the ripcord.
This is like a 1974.
You go out and find it. It's out there somewhere. But anyway, I come down, and I'm swinging, and I come down, and I smack the blacktop and swing up and hit a van.
Oh.
And my parachute drapes over the back of the van, and I hit backwards. And so I'm slumped at the base of this van with my parachute draped over the back of the van, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around, and I just remember seeing people running from every direction toward me, and I must have really looked a terrible mess. People were just freaking out.
Okay, being a classy, he's demonstrating that.
But when I was...
Yeah, this is the
They
demo
didn't
jump.
They didn't jump.
This is the
class
demo
didn't
jump. Yeah, that would freak
Well, I bet they didn't.
Did your friend jump?
But not that day. He did a couple weeks later.
Did you ever jump again?
Nope.
Not because
I
it freaked him
wanted
out. He
to.
never had a chance to. He left on
Well,
his mission.
2 days later, I was going home to Arizona. My parents had moved to Arizona, and so I'd just gotten out of school, that weekend, and 2 days later went to Arizona, and believe it or not, I drove myself home from that parachute thing. I had no broken bones. I had, a cracked jaw and
Loose teeth. And
a lot of skin missing from my neck and everything, but I drove myself home. But I showed up when I got to the door, and my mother met me at the door coming home. She thought I'd been in a car wreck. And she just, she started crying, and she was all upset and everything. And when I told her I'd been skydiving, then they were really mad. Because when I got in the deal to be able to learn to skydive for $20, I called him all excited.
his dad was a paratrooper in World War II,
I
so he thought he'd be
I
excited.
was so thrilled. I thought they're going to be thrilled too. It wasn't so much. and when I explained to them the whole deal, and there was this long pause of silence on the phone, and then my mother says, "Now, Sam, don't you think that's a bad idea?"
Sounds exactly like his mom.
And I thought, oh, yeah, that's right. She might not be that as excited as I am about it. And I said, "You're probably right." But I never said I wouldn't do it, and she never said I couldn't do it. She just said, "Don't you think it's a bad idea?" Well, I thought more about it and decided it wasn't that bad of an idea. But anyway,
like camera shake here when I laugh.
chewed out by my dad, by my mom, by my bishop, by my stake president, and everything. And
Because this was how long before you reported for your mission?
This was almost 2 months.
2 months before you reported.
And
Did you know how sore you must have been?
but my legs were still black and blue in the LTM, and I still had, it was all scabbed up on my neck and everything, but I still had some bandages.
Could you imagine that?
And-
So you had a friend when we lived in San Jose that always wanted us to go boating with him on Sunday because that was his only day off. And Sam would say, "So Tom, did I ever tell you about the time I went skydiving on Sunday?"
But my jump master said, you must have had, your adrenaline must have given you some kind of superhuman strength that you ripped open the emergency chute. And that was his explanation for how I survived.
Do you remember ripping open?
No, certainly not.
No, okay.
We figured there was somebody in Italy he was supposed to teach.
Right.
It was certainly a miracle, and at first I felt a little uncomfortable telling people. Well, tell people the story, and I didn't really want to say, well, then God saved my life, But
After he taught me a lesson.
right, and
Yeah,
so,
really.
I kind of went with the somehow it all worked out. The thing opened or whatever, but in the end, there really is no explanation. I can't think of a good explanation. I know I didn't tear the chute open. I don't think you could. Even with adrenaline, I don't think you could. And, a second before it opened, I was still in the mode of, I'm having fun. I love free fall.
He didn't
It
panic
is just
until
like
the very
Superman.
end.
I mean, if you ever have dreams or thought of, what it would be like to just fly, no plane or apparatus of any kind, just Superman. Put your arms out, because you can get going 60 miles an hour horizontal in skydiving.
So cool.
Yeah, and it is just like,
Catherine's got that don't even think about it thing
it
going
is just
there.
fantastic.
So awesome.
It is awesome. And
Is it those wingsuits that they have?
I want to try that.
Oh,
The
me
flying
too.
squirrel suits. You see those guys zipping by cliffs and
Yeah.
everything. Oh, that would be so fun.